Chapter: Who is to blame?
One day, Anastasia tried to explain to me something about her way of life and faith, but she couldn't find the appropriate and understandable word she must have wanted so very much to find. Then Anastasia quickly turned to face the ringing cedar and placed her palms on its trunk. Something incomprehensible began to happen. Looking up, addressing either the cedar or someone high above, she suddenly began speaking with passion and inspiration, first in words, then in sounds. She was trying to explain, prove, plead for something. Insistent, demanding notes were interspersed in her monologue. The crackling, the cedar's ringing, intensified. Its ray became brighter and thicker. Then Anastasia spoke imperiously.
"Answer me, answer! Explain! Give it to me, give it!"
At this she shook her head and even stamped her bare foot. The pale illumination from the ringing cedar's crown rushed toward the ray, and the ray suddenly broke off from the cedar and flew up, or dissolved. Right then, though, another ray appeared that went up towards the cedar. It appeared as a bluish fog or cloud. The cedar needles pointing down were illuminated by the same kind of cloud-like, barely noticeable little rays, and these rays streamed toward Anastasia, but did not touch her. They seemed to disappear, dissolving in the air. When she imperiously stamped her foot again and even slapped the ringing cedar's huge trunk, the shining needles began to stir and merge their little rays into a single cloud-like ray. But that ray, going down towards Anastasia, did not touch her either. It dissolved in the air as if evaporating, first about a meter away from Anastasia, then half a meter. I recalled with horror that her parents had probably died from just this kind of ray. Anastasia stubbornly continued to plead for and demand something, the relentless way a spoiled child asks his parents for what he wants. Suddenly, the ray burst toward her and lit her up like a flashbulb. A small cloud formed around Anastasia and melted away. The ray coming from the cedar dissolved, and the little rays coming from the needles went out. The small cloud around Anastasia melted away. It had either entered her or dissolved in space. Beaming and with a happy smile, she turned around, took a step in my direction, and stopped, fixing her gaze past me. I turned around. Anastasia's grandfather and great-grandfather walked out into the glade. Taking slow steps and leaning on a stick that looked like a shepherd's crook, her tall, grey-haired great-grandfather, walking slightly ahead of her grandfather, came up to me and stopped. He seemed to be looking through me. I couldn't even tell whether he could see me or not. He stood there silently. Then he bowed slightly without greeting me or saying a word and headed straight toward Anastasia. Her grandfather is fidgety but very simple. His appearance says that he is a cheerful and good person. Coming up to me, her grandfather immediately stopped and shook my hand very simply. He started to say something, but nothing he said then stuck in my mind. For some reason, both he and I began nervously watching what was happening next to the cedar. Her great-grandfather stopped about a meter short of Anastasia. They stood there for a while, silent, looking at each other. In front of the grey-haired elder, her hands lowered to her sides, like a schoolgirl standing in front of a strict examiner. Anastasia looked like a guilty child, and her agitation was palpable. In the tense silence that fell, the deep, velvety, and precise voice of her grey-haired great-grandfather rang out. Without greeting Anastasia, he asked sternly, pronouncing his words slowly and precisely,
"Who may bypass the light and rhythm we have been given and address him directly?"
Anyone may address him. Originally he himself spoke to man with great joy, and now he wants this.
Anastasia replied quickly.
"Are all paths to him foreordained? Can many living on earth know them? Can you see those paths?"
Yes, I have seen what has been foreordained for people. I have seen that the future depends on the consciousness of those living today.
His sons and their enlightened followers who have known his spirit did enough to make the flesh of the living understand.
They did and are doing everything, not sparing their own flesh. They bore and are bearing the truth.
Can he who sees these things doubt in the reason, goodness, and greatness of his spirit?
He has no equals. He is one. But he wants contact. He wants to be understood and loved the way he loves.
Is it permissible to be impertinent and demanding in your contact with him?
He gave a tiny particle of his spirit and reason to each person living on earth. And if the small particle in man, his particle, does not agree with what is generally accepted, that means he, and he specifically, will not accept everything in what is foreordained, he thinks. Can his thinking be called impertinence?
Who is permitted to accelerate the pace of his thinking?
Only the permitter is permitted.
What are you asking?
How are we to make those who don't understand, understand, those who don't feel, feel?
Is the fate of those who do not accept the truth determined?
The fate of those who do not accept the truth is determined. But who bears responsibility for the failure to perceive the truth? He who has not perceived it, or he who has not delivered it?
What? You mean you?
Her great-grandfather spoke agitatedly and fell silent. He stood looking at Anastasia for a while in silence. Then, leaning on his cane crook, he slowly dropped to one knee, took Anastasia's hand, bowed his grey head, kissed her hand, and spoke.
Hello, Anastasia.
Anastasia quickly knelt before her great-grandfather and began speaking in amazement and agitation.
What are you doing, Grandad dear? Like when I was little. I'm big now.
Then she put her arms around his shoulders, rested her head on his chest, which was covered by his grey beard, and fell still. I knew that she was listening to his heartbeat. She had loved listening to his heartbeat since she was a child. The grey-haired old man, kneeling on one knee and leaning on his cane crook, with one hand stroked Anastasia's golden hair with his other. Her grandfather became agitated and nervous, and ran up to his father and granddaughter kneeling there. He stepped lightly around them, spread his arms, and then suddenly also dropped to his knees and embraced them. First to rise was her grandfather. He helped his father get up. Her great-grandfather looked closely at Anastasia one more time, slowly turned, and began moving away. Rather quickly, her grandfather began talking, although to whom wasn't clear.
Everyone keeps spoiling her. So does he. Look at what she's gotten into. She pokes her nose in wherever she wants. There's no one to teach her better. Who's going to help the summer people now? Who?
Her great-grandfather stopped. Slowly he turned around, and once again in his deep, velvety voice spoke precisely.
Granddaughter dear, do what your heart and soul tell you. I will help you with your summer people myself.
Turning around, the magisterial, grey-haired old man walked slowly from the glade. Anastasia's grandfather continued to playfully chastise Anastasia.
I'm telling you, everyone keeps spoiling her.
He picked up a switch, saying,
So I'm going to teach her right now.
He minced toward Anastasia, swinging the switch.
Laughingly, oh no.
Anastasia clapped her hands, feigning fright. Then she burst into laughter and dodged her grandfather as he approached.
Now she thinks she can run away too, as if I couldn't catch her.
And he started running towards Anastasia with unusual speed and ease. She ran away laughing, looping through the glade. Her grandfather didn't lag behind, but he couldn't catch up either. All of a sudden, her grandfather gasped and plopped down, grabbing his foot. Anastasia quickly turned, her face filled with concern. She ran up to her grandfather and held out her hand. There she fell still. Her cascading, infectious laughter filled the glade. I looked closely at her grandfather's pose and understood the reason for her merriment. Her grandfather was squatting on one leg and was holding the other stretched out in front of him, not resting on the ground. But he was rubbing the leg he was sitting on, as if it were injured. He had outwitted Anastasia, but not deceived her. As later became clear, he had meant for her to notice the discrepancy, How comic his pose was right away. While Anastasia was laughing, her grandfather grabbed her by the arm, picked up his switch, and gave Anastasia a light flick with it, as if she were a naughty child. Through her laughter, Anastasia tried to play act that it hurt. Despite his unceasing, restrained laughter, her grandfather put his arms around her shoulders and said,
"All right, don't cry. Do you catch it? Serves you right. Now you're going to listen. Here I've started training an old eagle. It may be old, but it still has strength and remembers a lot. But she gets into everything, headless."
Anastasia stopped laughing, watching her grandfather attentively, and exclaimed,
Grandad dear. My dear sweet Grandad, an eagle. You mean you already know about the baby?
There was a star.
Anastasia wouldn't let her grandfather finish. She hugged him around the waist, lifting him off the ground, and started spinning. When she put him down on the ground, her grandfather tottered and said, trying to be stern,
"Is this how you treat your elders? I'm telling you, a poor upbringing."
And waving the switch, he set off quickly to catch up with his father. When her grandfather came up to the trees at the glade's edge, Anastasia shouted after him,
Thank you for the eagle, Grandad dear. Thank you.
Her grandfather turned around and looked at her.
"Only please, dear granddaughter, be..."
His tone of voice was too gentle, and breaking off his sentence, he added a little more sternly,
"Oh, watch out!"
and he disappeared behind the trees.
End of chapter. Join us for the next segment of Ringing Cedars of Russia, Book 2 of the Ringing Cedars series, God's Answer.